Hi, welcome to episode 71 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. My name's Laura, and I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Stash Buckler Adventures in Yarn, where I sell my handspun yarns. And finally, we have a group on Ravelry called The Corner of Knit and Tea. And if you haven't come over and checked us out, please do. We have some fun knit-alongs and just some chatter, and it's kind of a fun group. So hi, how are you? Welcome to January. It is Sunday, January 17th. It is cold, cold, cold here today. Last time I checked the thermometer, it was about 7 degrees Fahrenheit. And it looks like we got a light dusting of snow overnight, which actually surprised me because it was supposed to be in the 20s. So everything's a little bit white outside. It's not very much at all, because I can still see grass and everything through it, or what was grass. But it's cold and a good day to stay indoors. And I am looking forward to, I actually have a holiday weekend. I have Monday off in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And so I am enjoying a crafty weekend, because there is no reason to go outside when it is this cold. This week has been kind of, a little bit of a busy one. My mother-in-law's partner was discharged from the hospital finally on Thursday. So they went home on Thursday, which was nice for everyone involved. I'm sure they're glad to be back in their own beds, and we're pretty happy to have our house back to ourselves. Wes is actually, I don't know exactly what he's out doing right now, but he was very funny on Thursday or Friday. He said, do you think I could just spend Sunday by myself doing my own thing? And I was like, of course. He said, it's been a long time since we've been alone, because they were here for Christmas and then they came back. And so he's enjoying that, and I'm doing some chores and some crafty things and some photographs and, just a bunch of stuff around the house and kind of staying warm in my jammies. I did get a new shirt, which actually I had to laugh. I watched Amanda, so Nitpicky Wit, or Wit, she's Wit on Ravelry. She has Not Another Podcast, and I had to watch, I was watching her podcast last week, and I was like, oh, I bought that shirt too. So yes, we have the Knitting Ball heart shirt. So that's what's been going on here. I will jump into the show. I'm going to do my regular segments of tea, knitting, and spinning. And then I have some news about a giveaway. And I was going to do a brief segment on WIP shaming, because I know everyone's been doing those lately. And I have a few things I can show you, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in the show. So let's get started. Today I am drinking Trader Joe's, which is a supermarket chain here in the States, vanilla and cinnamon black tea. This was given to me by a friend, and she gave me this cute bag with a little illustration on it. It was very, very sweet. My friend Anna and I exchange teas all the time, but I had to laugh because usually we do usually write all the specifics on them, but we don't usually draw. But it was super cute, and I am drinking it in my Hoops and Yo-Yo mug. They are some of my favorites. They are Hallmark characters, and they're just goofy, and I love them. And I actually had some of this tea this week. It is delightful, and one of the benefits it has going for it, it comes in tea bags, obviously, but Anna said it's super delightfully cheap as well. So that is vanilla almond black tea, and that is quite welcome on today's freezing day. So let's get into the knits. I have one small finished object. I talked to you last week about the 25,000 Toques project in Canada. That is a Canadian woman decided that since Canada is accepting 25,000 refugees, Syrian refugees, and every baby that is born in Canada in a hospital receives a hand knit hat welcoming them to the world. She thought it would be nice to welcome all of the refugees with a hand knit hat, and as they are coming to Canada in the winter, it is very, very, I'm sure it will be welcome. In Canada, they often call hats toques. So that is why it is called the 25,000 Toques project. There are a couple collection stations in the US, and if you just Google 25,000 Toques, you will find all the information. I decided I wanted to try and knit some more charity hats. And I sort of hit all of my things out of the park this time. I used a pattern that had been in my library for a while. I used a lone skein of fingering weight that had been in my stash for a while. And as it turned out, I had woven the other skein into a scarf. So I think I'm going to send that along with the hat in the hopes that they will be gifted together. The hat pattern is Excess by Annette Rodin. It looks a little bit like barley, although not exactly. The hem is this is a free pattern, so I'm not giving too much away. The hem is actually a doubled hem. You knit part of it and then you join it together so that it is a folded over hem, so it's nice and snug. And then it's a kind of a slouchy hat, and it does have that little garter panel, a little bit like the barley hat. This is a lone skein of Crown Mountain Farms sock hop. Sadly, they are no longer in business. They sold beautiful fiber, and then they also sold some hand spun sock yarn. And the deal is I had been given 2 skeins of sock yarn, and I had used one to weave into a scarf, and I had this lone skein that was about 200 yards, so it wasn't quite enough for a pair of socks, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And I thought, oh, that would make a lovely, lovely hat. And then I thought, oh, I think I still have the scarf. I had woven it up to sell at a craft show, but it didn't happen to sell. So I have the scarf here. And it is, I just wove it up. I believe this is with some, it's not lamb's pride, brown sheep in their superwash wool, and then I wove up the warp is the brown sheep, lamb's brown sheep superwash wool, and then the weft is the sock skein. So that will go with this hat, and I will be planning to send those off. I think I'm going to try and do a couple more things. I went and looked through my scarves, and I still have some yarn left, and I have some combos, and I believe the project has said they are mostly interested in hats. They would prefer you not send scarves and other things, but that if you make a matched set, you can send them together. So I think I'm going to try and do that, and I'm going to try and do a couple more before I send that off in the next couple weeks. But that is my one FO for the week, and another charity hat. So that's my third so far of 2016. So let's move on to the works in progress. I showed you last week. I'll show you, oh, you know what? I completely forgot one of my works in progress. Why don't you hold just a moment and I will be right. The Vita Shawl by Mina Phillip, and it is getting too big for me to spread out on the needles. I have gotten fairly far in. I finished the first skein and I'm into the second skein. The chart is, I guess I'm not giving too much away. The shawl is calls for 7 repeats of a chart, and I am on 5.5, so I have another 1.5 to go. My plan is to try and finish that today and tomorrow while I'm off, so that then I can go into the second color, edging. And again, the color that I'm using for that is mica, which is a kind of a greeny bluey gray, and I think it will provide a nice contrast to the main color. And actually those colors are coming across pretty well today. Usually that blue does not come across well, but that's coming across pretty well. So that is my progress on that one. I hope to have this done by the end of the month because there is a knit along going on over in Mina's group. That is the Knitting Expat. This is in my mustache bag, which was graciously given to me by Kimmy, or Kim over at the Come Knit With Us podcast. And while I'm thinking about details, the needle that I am using is a US 6. I'm sorry, I do not know what that is in millimeters. And the yarn itself is Tosh Merino Light. This is in the Mirth colorway. And as I said, the contrast will be in the Mica colorway. So that is that project. I'm very happy with my progress on that. And of course, because I just couldn't help myself, I cast on for a couple new things. I did talk to you last week about knitting a baby sweater for a cousin who is going to have a baby girl in February. And I have gotten pretty far into that one. Those of you who follow my Instagram will know that. I have finished the body on Wee Liesel, which is a little feather and fan sweater. The pattern is by Isolde Teague, and actually There is a Liesel sweater pattern for adults, but this is the wee Liesel version. This is the 0 to 6 month size, and actually the sleeves are a little bit bigger than they look, so it's not quite as doll sized as it looks, but it is absolutely adorable. It is going to need a good blocking. I am using Baron Vola in the barefoot sock base, which is superwash merino and polyamide, and it is in the colorway Wild Orchid, and it's just this great colorway that has kind of a magenta and then pops of yellow and green, and I am really, really loving it, and I have some little purple flower buttons. So that is what I am working on here, and this needs sleeves this week. I fully expect that this will be a finished object by next week, because I will work on the sleeves during my lunch hour this week, and that will be finished. So that one is going on good progress, and I hope to have that finished by next week and then send that out. That brings me to the final cast on. I was just itching to cast on something else, and especially since it has been so cold here, I have wanted to cast on a big fluffy cowl. And the story behind this cowl is actually that I saw the pattern I think before last Christmas, because I had bought some yarn in Los Angeles and I decided I knew what I wanted it to be. And the pattern had come out in a book of patterns published by Sweet Georgia. And it took forever for the pattern to be available as a single pattern. And when it was like July, and nobody needs a huge, thick, crazy cowl in July. So then it just sat, but I have been wanting to do it. And especially since it's been so cold and this is kind of a bulky cowl, I definitely wanted to do it now. So the pattern is called Breakers, and it's by Holly Yo. And it's got this really cool, it's a new stitch to me. It's called Double Garter Stitch. And they knit it in 2 colors. I'm actually using 3, although I don't have all of them with me today. And I have just been working on this some in the evenings. It's on a big needle. I have it on a US 9. I think it calls for an 8, but I liked the fabric that I was getting on the 9s. And I'm actually in the middle of a row, so this is probably not the best way to show this, but I will. And so it is making these really cool kind of ridges as part of the double garter stitch. And this yarn is absolutely amazing. It is Woolfolk, and it is Far. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong because it's got the accent over the A. And it is basically a worsted weight yarn. It comes 142 yards to the skein, and it is super, super soft. It is wool, but you wouldn't know it. I would have expected there to be some cashmere in here. It's just super soft. And the yarn itself is kind of a cable construction. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but let's see if I can show you. It's kind of a cable construction. Yeah, actually you can see that pretty well. So it's got lots of air, and it's super soft and super squishy, and I am just loving, loving, loving knitting with it. This is the Dove Gray colorway, and then I think this is, you know what, it doesn't say on here. This is like a really, really dark kind of charcoaly, I can't remember if this is the black one or it's charcoal gray, because it looks like it could sort of be either. And then I have like a medium gray in there, and this cowl is going to be all the different shades. And basically, I believe the way you do it is you knit it kind of lengthwise. So you cast on a whole bunch of stitches and you go back and forth a whole bunch of times, and then they have kind of a cool way to pick it up and join it at the end. So at the end I will be picking up my 2 ends and joining those together. So that's what I'm working on. I kind of also hope to finish this by the end of the month, but if I don't, I suppose it's not terrible. But it knits up pretty fast. It is a lot of stitches, but it knits up pretty fast because it's bulky. I'm getting length or height pretty fast because of it. And I would love to be able to wear it while it is still so cold out. So yeah. So that is what I'm working on. The only other thing I might add to that, and I'm not even sure if I can get something done before the end of the month, is either another hat for the 25,000 Toques project, or I need to knit Roxy some slippers to send with the ones that I knit for my sister, and whatever I don't do this month will roll over into next month. So, you know, it'll be what it'll be. So let's move on to the spins. Last week I showed you a fun braid of Southern Cross fiber. It was Polworth and Tencel. which I had not spun before. I had not spun that specific blend before. And I was going to spin it into a 2-ply, and it was part of my Harry Potter Owl Ordinary Wizarding level, which I am concentrating on some spinning this time around. And it is also one for the shop. And it is finished, and it is beautiful. It is kind of rainbowy, although this is not giving the best color, but it's kind of rainbowy. It's got kind of a dark red and some orange and a little bit of yellow and green and a lot of turquoise, and it's just really, it's pretty. It's got a beautiful luster and shine, and it almost looks in certain lights like it has sparkles in it. It doesn't, but that is the tencel, just making it shine and look kind of lustrous. I expect that this will be probably between 3 and 350 yards, and it is probably a sport weight-ish, and this should hit the shop later today after I finish taking some pictures. So that is the spin that I finished this week. Which brings me to spins for the following week. I actually finished that one on Friday and started another one yesterday. And since I'm going to be off on Monday, I think I'm going to try and spin 2 braids this week. So this is the other half of what is currently on the wheel. This is some Hello yarn. It is an organic Polworth. Little fiber nap there. It is organic Polworth, and it is in Colliding Galaxies, which is a great colorway. It's got some gold and pink, and then little bits of orange partway through, and then it's got some purple and just a little bit of kind of a green, kind of an olive green and taupe. And it's got some really interesting colors, and I'm excited to see how these play together. So the other half is on the wheel already, and I will be taking some photos of that for Instagram, and then I hope to finish spinning this up in the next day or so and ply and have another one ready to go for the shop. So my second spin of this week, it's actually a spin for a friend. And so I am hoping to finish this pretty quickly this week as well. This is another Southern Cross fiber, and this is a different blend. The label's on the floor, that's why I'm looking down. It is a 50% merino, 25% suri alpaca, and 25% mulberry silk. And it is blues and grays and greens, and there's just a little bit of kind of a purpley color in there. And it is just gorgeous, and it is called Esmeralda. And I think this is going to be a beautiful spin. It might be a little bit hairy because of the alpaca. I'm not so much of a fan of spinning alpaca, but I think it will make the resulting yarn super, super soft, and this is a super luxurious blend. So I will be spinning this one up. Unfortunately, it will not go into the shop, but you will get to see it as I spin it. So that is what I am spinning this week. So that brings me to a few little end bits. Actually, I'm going to pause here very briefly and put everything up on the table next to me so I don't have to reach down to the floor, and we will continue with the last few things. So hold on just a moment and I'll be right back. Okay, I've reset, so let's start again. One of the things that I have been watching on a variety of podcasts in the last few weeks is people bringing out their works in progress and kind of WIP shaming themselves. There are a few people who have done really nice episodes on it. I confess that I don't have a lot to shame myself with, and I'm not doing this to try and brag. 2014, a friend and I decided that was going to be the year of fix it, finish it, or frog it. So in 2014, I did quite a bit of fixing, finishing, and frogging. I finished 4 items. I frogged 4 items. And so that was the bulk of things that had been on the needles for a while. So I only have the last 2 years. And as you have seen, most of the time, I will rip it if I'm not liking it, or I will go ahead and finish it. So I don't have a lot, but I went ahead and pulled the things that I do have, and I'm pretty pleased with myself for not having too many things that are a problem. The oldest one is from August 2014, and that is a sock blank that I dyed with some friends and then tried to knit up into socks. And I don't know if you remember the sock blank. It's a beautiful sock blank. I kind of did almost, I called it Tequila Sunrise. I've got a little bit of purple into pink and red and orange, and then the orange went into yellow. And I went ahead and started knitting socks, and they are enormous for my feet. I don't know if you could tell, but they are just, they're not so long, but this here right by the heel, this is enormous for my size 6.5 foot. So I really need to rip these out. And the reason that I have not been ripping them out, or they have sat in the corner for a while, and one of my friends is probably screaming at the screen right now because she told me to send it to her a while ago and she would rip it out and take care of it for me. And I totally have not done that. Part of the reason that I have not ripped it out is because it is a double sock blank. So it is a 2-stranded sock blank. So when I pull these out, I'm going to have to pull kind of the whole thing out, and I'm going to have 2 strands at once, and I'll have to separate them into 2 separate balls of sock yarn. And so basically I've just been lazy because it's going to be kind of messy and it's going to take me a little while. What I need to do is I need to rip it out. I was thinking about rescanning the yarn and then washing it so that it wasn't all, because the other problem is that when you knit from a sock blank, it's a little bit like knitting with ramen. And a lot of people like that, and I typically have not had a problem with that, but since these socks came out so enormous, I kind of thought that maybe what I would do is I would go ahead and wash the yarn and then recake it and basically be ready to start. I also, because of the fact that it was in 2 strands, I started doing these 2 at a time on circular needles, and I think that affected my gauge a little bit. So basically, my resolution for 2016 is to rip these out, wash the yarn, and start again and end up with some awesome knee socks. So that is the plan. That is one of the things that I hope to get to this year. That is my oldest work in progress from August 2014. So, and I don't think that's too bad since August 2014. I mean, I realize that that's a year and a half ago and I really should have done this by now, but I don't think that's terrible. The next oldest is on 3/14/15, Pi Day this last year. I joined Liz Farley, I joined Liz, who is Liz FM on Twitter, and Liz Farley Metzger on, well, no, she's Liz FM on Ravelry, and then I think she's Liz Farley Metzger on Instagram. She is the travel correspondent over at Come Knit With Us, and she's the one who I did the the first episode of January with. She wanted to do a pie shawl, and I got all excited and cast on for a pie shawl with her, and I worked on it for couple weeks, and then it's just been sitting since then. And this is I don't even remember which one I picked. Let me see if I have it printed out, because I have the pattern in here. I just don't remember if I printed the whole. I don't think I did. I selected the Heliotaxis pie shawl, which is one that I had been wanting to knit. And I started it, and the yarn is Squoosh Fiber Arts. It is her superwash lace, and it is in the raisin colorway. And it is beautiful. It's kind of browns, and it's got some hints of pinks and purples. And it is gorgeous. And I started it, and I got through the first chart, or the first couple charts. And it's all, of course, it's all like on the needle, but here's the center, and I got kind of out to here, and I kind of abandoned it. I don't know whether I got bored or I just wasn't super interested or exactly what. I didn't mess up. It's fine. I mean, I could pick it back up and start again, but for some reason it didn't take with me. I didn't want to sit and knit lace. I wanted to, I don't know whether it was that it was slow progress and I wanted something that was instant gratification, or if I just wasn't in the mood to knit lace. And I don't know what I'm going to do with this. It's almost a year old at this point, and in some ways I would really like to finish it, and in some ways I'm like, I don't know if I want to knit hate it. It's a beautiful shawl. I just am not kind of feeling it. So I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do. I'm not going to pull it out just yet. But I think I'll make a resolution that by the end of 2016, I need to decide whether I am just going to pull it out or whether I'm going to sit down and finish it. And if I'm going to sit down and finish it, I should sit down and finish it. And it might be something that I might pick up over the summer, because it would be nice because it's not super heavy, and it would be nice. It fits in a tiny project bag, even though it's going to be huge when it's done. Anyway, so that is from March of 2015, which again, I don't think is terrible. So that's the second work in progress. The third work in progress is something that I have sort of intentionally stopped working on. And you'll know it. You'll know why when I talk about it. That is one of my Cozy Memories blankets. And this is the one that is the crochet hexagons, and it makes me think of stained glass. And I started this one, and I eventually hope to get back to it. But what I found was that I was having some trouble with not so much with the crochet, but just that it took more concentration and more dexterity, and it wasn't as relaxing as I wanted it to be, because it's not a skill that I'm incredibly good at, because I'm not much of a crocheter. So I kind of put it on hold, and I started another blanket that you have seen quite a bit. And so I have been working on that blanket, and actually what has been happening is I've been using some of my scraps, and those squares take 7 or 8 grams and of sock yarn, usually because I'm holding it doubled. And these only take like about 2.5. So when I have little bits left over from those, I'm throwing them into a jar. So I still have a jar that I can go back to and work on this one again. So I suspect I will get back to this one eventually, although I don't know exactly when. This of my works in progress is the only one that I sort of intentionally put down and was like, I'm just not going to do this right now. I'm going to go back to it again one day. So I do not plan to frog this. I plan to just leave it as is. And one day I'm sure I will feel inspired to go back to it. But that is my third work in progress. So again, I'm really not seeing anything that I'm too upset about here, because I know about these things. And this was in a really cute knit pearl cup of tea bag that I found the fabric for on Spoonflower after seeing someone else's bag. And then this was done at the Kicks and Giggles shop. This was a custom order from her. So the final 2 works in progress, and I'm not even counting these as part of WIP shaming because I am working on them, is the mittens for my mom, which I have not been working on as much as I should, but they are going to get done. That is definitely slated for the beginning of February. That is probably the first project I will pick up in February and try and finish. As you remember, I have finished the first one, including the lining, so that one is entirely done except for good blocking. And I have actually already knit the cuff on the second one. I just need to do the color work and do the lining and get it done. And honestly, if I just pick it up and focus on it, I will get that done shortly. But I don't consider that a kind of WIP shaming, because for something to be kind of an abandoned work in progress or whatever, I want it to not have been worked on for a while, and I have slowly been working on those mittens. I mean, it's certainly taking me longer than it should, but I worked on them through November and December, and I did the second cuff in January, so it's not like I'm completely not working on them. And then my final work in progress, and technically I guess this one should come before the mittens, but it doesn't really matter. My final work in progress is my current Cozy Memories blanket. And again, I don't really consider that kind of an abandoned work in progress because I am working on it. I can't remember when I last knit a square on it. I know I knit a whole bunch of squares right around Christmas weekend and a little bit into New Year's weekend. So it might have been 2 weeks, but it's not that I'm not working on that, and I do plan to do it. And actually I'm waiting to see if Wool Diaries and Pink Hair Girl Knits do another Sock Madness Squares week, because that is always a good motivator for me to spend a week working on that blanket. And I hope to put more on that in February. And I'm really not sure how long that one's going to take me. It's going to be a long-term project because I don't know exactly how big I want it to be. And so I am just working on building it bigger. And I am not going to run out of scraps anytime soon. So that will be a work in progress for quite a while. And again, I don't consider it really abandoned the same way those socks and the pie shawl are, in the sense that I haven't touched them for months and I don't really want to work on them and I just don't know what I'm going to do. So those are my WIP shaming, which brings me to the final element of the podcast today. Some of you may have noticed on Instagram when I posted last week's episode that I had hit 600 subscribers on YouTube, and I am so excited. Thank you all for subscribing and for watching and for leaving comments, and I wanted to offer a little bit of a giveaway. So the rules for the giveaway are you need to leave a comment on the YouTube video. So head on over to YouTube and leave a comment on the video. You can tell me anything. I don't have a specific topic. Just leave me some kind of comment. And I will do a random number draw right before I record next weekend, which will be the 24th. And so you'll have a week to do it. And up for prize, I was thinking about what would I love to knit in this cold weather. This is a hand-dyed skein from a beautiful shop in Manhattan Beach called Twist. It's right near where my parents live. It is 100% superfine alpaca, and it is 620 yards. I'm guessing it's a sport two-fingering. It is super squishy, and it is a dark, dark forest green. And I'm not really sure how well you'll be able to see it. I will post a photo on Instagram. And actually, I will take a photo and I will pop it in at the end of this video so you have a better idea. It is a deep, deep, deep forest green. So it looks almost black, but it's just got some hints of green. And I don't know, it almost looks a little tealy to me. I don't know. It looks a little bit like an oil slick. And this is super squishy, super fine alpaca. And I think it would make a beautiful shawl or cowl. And it is... it would be super, super warm. So that is the giveaway. And you can see it is, let's see if I can get it so that it doesn't, I'm trying to get the label so that it shows kind of, it's hard to, Twist alpaca, hand-dyed, Manhattan Beach, superfine alpaca, hand wash, 620 yards. So that is what's up for grabs. If you want to be entered to win, again, leave a comment on this video on YouTube, and I will draw for a winner next week. So that is the end of this week's podcast. Thank you for joining me. It has been wonderful speaking to you, and I will say, as I always do, until I see you next time, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.